Well, I showed this champion yesterday, so we got her home. We delivered it last night. So I thought I'd go over it a little bit, give you some idea what we're dealing with here. Like I say, it's a 720A. Now the A means it's articulated. But I'll start off on the front here. In the first place, it needs new tires. These tires are completely shot, but he's got a couple of them he's going to pick up. New ones are like $5.50 for one of these for the bias ply. Now the tires in the back are recap Michelin radials, which are a good tire. So, and they're all matched, because the main thing on these, you've got to match the tires. You know, they've got to be the same diameter, or it's the tandem drive chain takes a beating, and it also I got guineas going crazy. It also chews up tires, you know, if they're not matched. But these front ones, to be wore like this, I mean, they're pretty old. So new ones will go on that. Now there's a few oil leaks. I can see this cylinder has been leaking. You know, it'll just be a lot of repairs on minor leaks. It does have the plow bracketry all installed and hooked up, so if we find a V-plow, it'd be all right to have, but it's not something we'd really run into that often that we need. But the older V-plows you can get pretty cheap, usually scrap iron price, so it's not a big deal. It also has a scarifier on it, not something the guy really needs. I don't know that we'll ever have a use for that, but it doesn't really get in the way, so it's not a problem. But what they're for, there's big teeth that go in there, and then you can lower down to rip hard packed ground. It could be all right. You know, like I say, it's not a harm to have it on there. But again, you know, leaking cylinder here. This, I was trying to figure out how it had so much dirt on the circle here, but it is that cylinder that's leaking. And I actually used to have a set of the spanner wrenches for taking these big cylinder nuts off, but when we traded off for a 730, I let them go. I kind of should have hung on to them. But we'll be chasing a few minor oil leaks, but they're all pretty minor. You know, they're seeps, not so much leaks. But these tires, these are good tires. They're somewhat worn, but they're a good omnidirectional. They're good on ice. Not big lugs, but they run quiet. They have a tendency to throw rocks. They'll pick up rocks and throw rocks. Not so bad on the back, but on the front, you really have to have fenders on if you run that style of tire. But he's going to get a regular bias tire for the front, so he should be all right there. Now, when I said articulated, you know, it bends in the middle. But I like that. The good thing about it is it allows you, when you're grading, to run your wheels offset. So you can have your back tires and the main weight of the machine up in the middle of the road and pull the front end over and then cut right behind the wheel. I like doing it that way. And it also, you can turn really short that way. But you have to handle them with a certain amount of caution, because you can end up articulating your blade into your tire if you don't know what you're doing, so you got to pay attention. But even I've seen operators chewing up tires all the time, doing, you know, even just with a circle turn, getting the blade over into the tire. But there has got to be, well, I should have brought a tape measure, but I think we're dealing with a 14 foot with that extension on. So it might be a 12-foot blade and then a 2-foot extension to make it 14. 14 is what we commonly use on these township roads. Any more than that just gets in the way. You carry it over too far. So 14 is fine. Yeah, I think we got two 7-foot cutting edges there. You know, even 12 would be fine for township, but they come in a variety of sizes, and you can put extensions on the other side. You can do anything you want with them. And the cutting edges, like I say, there's two. And they got to be the 7-footers there. And they run about $100 a piece. This is wore a little peculiar. It's wore more on this side than the other. But that's where they're split in the middle and you rotate them. But this should get us through quite, because we really won't be putting on more than about 100 hours a year on this thing. So it's not a big factor. And it's all on gravel. It's when you start plowing on pavement, which is what this was used. They had a wing on it and were plowing pavement with it, which explains those tires. But the wing is off, so we're kind of looking for a wing, and these would have been a cable-operated Falls wing, more than likely. Now, this came out of Fergus Falls, Minnesota. Minnesota uses a lot of salt on their roads. That's why the paint is faded and there's the rust spots on it, but the scheme here is to kind of repaint that thing next spring. And spruce it up a lot, because mechanically, other than the oil leaks, the machine is really sound. So, just to clean up the cosmetics. And now, like I say, this is an older one, and they've got that flat hood on them. Now, the newer series, they had a very angled top to them, and a lot more cowling and stuff. Actually, this looks like an easier method to work on, because to get at anything, you've got these side panels that pop off. The newer ones, they actually hinged open. But I can see to pull this top off, to get the whole hood off, is just a few bolts. And this should be a fuel tank right here, which is nice because then the heat from your motor warms your fuel. You don't have so much trouble in winter. Nothing like a guinea or a fine cat. But the guineas, they don't like any activity. Start making a squawk. Now, the newer Champion, that 730 I ran, actually had a louvered radiator cover that was thermostatically controlled, which was kind of nice. Well, it worked, but they have a tendency to not work. So this then put a screen over it, because the only trouble we have is with cottonwood seeds. Certain times a year, they'll plug up a radiator within a mile. If somebody's got a shelter belt of cottonwoods. But you can see, she's a kind of a greasy pig. And rust. Well, just the surface rust. But get that baby repainted. She's a pretty solid machine. I like it. I like a Champion. The Champion's a nice grader. And like the Volvo that I was driving at the end there, what happened when Volvo decided they wanted to make a road grader, they simply bought out Champion, which is a Canadian company. And then what they did is they started putting, basically the machine is the same. And a lot of the parts are interchangeable and stuff, except they went with the motor that was in our Volvo was actually a Deutz motor, a German motor. Well, these old ones have got the Cummins motor in them, which is a great motor. In fact, my brother called me earlier this morning. He was tickled because he had been sitting overnight, and he went out this morning, and he said he just turned the key, and boom, she's running right away. They start really well, down to zero without being plugged in. That 730 that I was driving, I really got to appreciate that Cummins motor. And the Cummins motor is a much cheaper running motor than what the Volvo motor was. Uses a lot less fuel. Plus, there are certain advantages too, in that, like here, your hydraulic filter and your transmission filter are right behind these covers. Very easy to get at them. Now, in that Volvo, to change the tranny filter, you had to actually drop that rock guard underneath. It was buried under there. So, maintenance-wise, this is a lot easier to deal with. Plus, it doesn't have all the computer stuff. You know, it's nice. Some computer stuff was okay, but, you know, like the Volvo had 3 computers on it. And down the road, that stuff will bite you. This is a lot more straightforward. It does have the transmission that I like. Okay, this is, it's a pulsar transmission where you got the one lever for forward and reverse, and the other one you just bang it up to go up a gear, down to go down a gear. Very straightforward. And they work really well. In fact, I know when I talked to the dealer, the Champion dealer, he said basically what they did is they made a really good transmission and they designed a grader around it. So that's a pretty solid transmission. I really got no complaints about it at all, really. Actually, a very nice machine. You know, but you can see, like, here is the color that it should have been. Here's the color it's faded out to. But that can be taken care of. Wing, like I said, it's got, there's the wing mount. And then there's brackets that run to the front and the back. And I'm sure this would be the old cable operated is what it would have came with. But when they took the wing off, because the highway department that had it kept the wing, they left all of the solenoids and the control valves and everything is there. So if we can go to a salvage yard and pick up the mast for the wing and the cable operated contraption and the wing, that would be in shape. But we can get by without the wing for now. You know, I used to run an old Ellis Chalmers. We never had a wing for it all winter. I just plowed with a blade. I mean, you can do that. Or if we really need to, we can pick up the plow for the front, because a lot of highway departments, those plows go up for sale, the V plows, because the old high ones nobody wants to run. They want to run the lower ones. So those old high ones tend to go for scrap. Got a fine guard dog watching. I'm watching him so he doesn't go on the river, because there's open ice and they tend to want to go on the river and break through. But all in all, good machine. Does not have air conditioning, which is a little surprising. You know, most of these would have come with air, but this has never had it in it. Well, for us, you know, if we put on 100 hours in a year, I can survive a couple days a month without air conditioning, because the windshield will actually, you can open it. On the newer machines, it's closed up completely. You can't, you know, so you have to have air conditioning because they're like a greenhouse. But these older ones, heater is more important than anything, and it's got a good heater in it. And it's got a couple of those squirrely little fans, which both work, which is surprising because they tend to die. But all in all, not a bad machine. You know, it's new enough to have the features that you really like to have, like the articulation and the power shift transmission. But it's old enough that you can still work on it. Because that was the thing with the Volvo. When I was running that, it was every time you had a problem, oh, you get an error code, then you had to call up the service outfit, then you had to look up the error code to find out, and usually that didn't tell you much. There was a lot of, to figure out what it is, they had to plug a computer into it and figure out what the problem was. Well, see, this is a lot more straightforward. So for this level of work, and this is what you really want. No, I'm pleased that'll take a load off. See, the problem was, you know, it used to be, I was doing these roads out here with the Volvo in this township, the one I live in, but it was owned by a different township that I worked for. That was an unusually large township, so I had a lot of ground to cover. But when I quit working for them, they hired somebody that didn't work out and kind of screwed up their roads, and they kind of screwed up our roads because we had him coming in here. Well, that is kind of intolerable to be paying money to have somebody screwing up your roads. Well, it's hard to get a small township like this to buy, to invest in a big piece of equipment. That's quite an expenditure, and a used one is always a gamble. So in the end, my brother decided, well, he'll take the gamble, and then we'll do it under contract. It's easier. The township knows what they're paying. You take that gamble because you got the machine you got to work on, and keep running. But the township doesn't have to take the gamble. So I think it'll work out. But like I say, there isn't that many hours on this machine, and they're usually good. I think my 730A, I started having problems. You get up like 12, 13,000 hours. Well, this is like half of that, So I think we'll be in good shape for a lot of years. More of the years than we'll need it. It shouldn't be a problem. And even at the end, when you're done, you've still got a handy piece of equipment. You can do a lot with a grader if you know what you're doing. And this will give us a certain degree of independence from, because having to have somebody else come in and do it, like even when I was running the other machine, well, it took me 2 days to plow out that township. So I was over here on the third day. Well, third day is quite a lot, if you got snowed in roads for buses and mail routes. This way I can get them at them the first day, So I think it'll work out better. But I like it. But we're going to be chasing oil leaks for a while. But that ain't nothing new. I mean, every piece of farm equipment you have has got oil leaks on. You got to kind of triage them and fix what needs to be fixed. But I think both of these lift cylinders will have to have seals put in them. But they're built solid. Champion made a good grader because that's all they made. They didn't make a whole bunch of equipment. They just made road graders. So they made a really good road grader. I'm satisfied. I can run this baby.